The Wall Street Journal reporting on this grand jury impaneled by Robert Mueller just hours after the Washington Post revealed transcripts of separate phone calls between Trump and the leaders of Mexico and Australia. And all before tomorrow, when Attorney General Jeff Sessions announces a crackdown on leakers. As for the calls, the Washington Post reporting based on those leaked documents that President Trump pressured the Mexican president to stop publicly saying that his government would not pay for a border wall. Who's leaking and why and what is at stake? Joining me now, John Wood is back, Steve Cortes and Christopher Hahn. I want to go back, though, to this grand jury we've been talking about for the whole show. And, John, go to you first, because in the last block we had a former federal prosecutor saying, hey, I know these guys that have been hired. They're super aggressive, super skilled. They're going to find some crime somewhere. Do you agree?
I certainly agree that they're aggressive and very skilled. And yes, when you put enough resources on something, usually you end up finding something. But the one thing I would emphasize is that they have sterling reputations, as does Bob Mueller himself, and they're known for being very fair and people of great integrity. So while I do think if you put that many lawyers on something and they investigate it that thoroughly, there is a good chance that they're going to find something. But I don't have any reason to think that this is some kind of unfair witch hunt.
Steve, you agree?
No, I don't agree. I think it's an unfair witch hunt. This is banana republic stuff. Joseph Stalin once said that, show me the man and I'll produce the crime, right? I think that's what's going on here. When you sick 16 lawyers with unlimited budgets, unlimited scope, they're now looking at his business affairs. What in the world does that have to do with Russians allegedly interfering in our election? That's absurd. It's banana republic type tactics, and it's offensive.
Chris, I know I can hear you in my ear, just really trying to get in here. What do you say?
Well, let me just remind everybody, there was a crime. The Russians interfered with our election.
But it wasn't the president.
Somebody.
I mean, you're talking about the Russians.
Jerry.
The Russians
well,
is the
Jerry,
subject of your sentence, right?
The question has to be now, were there any Americans that were involved? And of course, Trump's finances are of concern, because if he was doing a lot of dealings with Russia, perhaps he had some commitment to the Russians. So I think Mueller, who is very fair, who was appointed by many Republicans, should be trusted to do his job. And if there's nothing there, there'll be nothing there.
Chris, when you say perhaps,
will be fine.
When you say perhaps, that's not how the law is supposed to work. Now, look, did Donald Trump sell properties to Russians? Of course he did. Anyone who's involved in high-end real estate has sold property to Russians, whether it be in America, in Asia, in London. But to then presuppose...
Let me answer that for a second. Let me just answer that. So let's say we find that he had a $1 million condo that went for $20 million to a Russian investor. Is that good? Is that something we should be concerned about?
But
that's what they're going to find.
Right. You say, wait, guys. So, Chris, you're saying something I've never, like there's no evidence of that.
Right.
We don't know whether that's going on.
I'm not saying there was. And Jerry, I wasn't saying there was any evidence of that. But let's
you're
say
suggesting
that.
I think that's called hearsay in a court of law. I'm not sure.
Right.
John, let me bring you back in here, because there was so much talk about Mueller when he was brought in. What a decent man he was, how well regarded he's been, blah, 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 on and on and on. And yet, what you hear over and over again, certainly from Republicans and some others, is that the folks that he's put in charge, the people that he's appointed, Greg Andrews and others, they are no fans of Donald Trump. So does that color what they might do? Does that color their findings? Does that color how they'll prosecute this case?
I think it's a little bit of a concern. I do wish that Bob Mueller would be sure to hire both Republicans and Democrats and try and have a very balanced team working for him. Mueller himself is a Republican, but you're correct that most of the team he's put together appears to be Democrats, and I think he should strive for balance. Now, if ultimately they end up bringing charges against someone, that doesn't mean that it's motivated by politics. But in order to avoid even the appearance that it could be based on politics, I do wish that he would hire some Republicans as well.